What's happening, everyone? I need to tell you about something that absolutely dominated the conversation on SportsCenter today. And I'm talking about the kind of NFL storyline that has immediate implications for playoff races, draft positioning, and the entire future trajectory of one of the most historic franchises in professional football. This is the type of breaking news that makes you sit up straight in your chair and pay attention, because what happened yesterday with the New York Giants, combined with what ESPN is reporting today about potential moves they could make, creates this perfect storm of drama, controversy, and genuine intrigue that you just can't look away from. So settle in, because what I'm about to share with you from today's broadcast is going to give you so much to think about regarding where the Giants are heading and what they need to do to fix this absolute disaster of a season. Alright, so let me set the stage for what went down on SportsCenter this morning that had the entire panel absolutely fired up and engaged in some of the most intense debate I've seen all season. The Giants lost another game yesterday, and this wasn't just any loss, this was another fourth-quarter collapse. Another situation where they had a lead and completely fell apart down the stretch. But that's not even the most explosive part of this story. After the game, Malik Neighbors, their star rookie wide receiver who's been dealing with injuries, went on Twitter and essentially called out the entire organization. He tweeted something along the lines of, "Sometimes I think they be making us lose on purpose," before quickly deleting it. But not before everyone and their mother had already screenshot it. And it went absolutely viral across social media. Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we dive in, I need 1 second of your time. That like button right there, hitting it now, makes a massive difference in reaching more fans with this content. I know you're ready for the breakdown, but real quick, just smash that like button. It's the single most powerful way to support this channel and help the algorithm push this to thousands more people. Every like matters, so do me that favor right now. Now, the SportsCenter crew today was breaking down every single angle of this situation because there's so much to unpack here. First, you have a young star player publicly questioning whether his own team is trying to lose game. That's nuclear. That's the kind of thing that creates massive rifts in locker room and gets people fired. Second, you have the context of what actually happened in the game that made Neighbors so frustrated. The Giants had the ball late, they were in position to potentially put the game away, and the coaching decisions that were made were absolutely questionable, to put it mildly. They threw the ball instead of running clock. They went for it on 4th down from the 4-yard line instead of kicking a field goal to go up 6. And ultimately, they lost in overtime after their defense completely collapsed yet again. What really got the ESPN analysts going today was discussing whether Neighbors was right to be frustrated, even if he was wrong to tweet about it publicly. And here's where the conversation got really interesting, because there were legitimate disagreements among the panel about the coaching decision. Some analysts were defending the decision to go for the touchdown on 4th down, arguing that when you're 2-9 and your season is basically over, you play to win games, you don't play to back into victories by taking field goals and hoping your defense can get stopped. Other analysts were absolutely destroying that logic, saying when you have a chance to go up by 6 points late in the game, you take those points every single time and force the other team to score a touchdown to beat you. But here's what really dominated the SportsCenter discussion today. And this is what ties into the Shaheed situation that I'm going to get into in a minute. The broader question that kept coming up was, what is wrong with this Giants offense that they keep putting themselves in positions to win games, but can't actually finish? And more specifically, what happened to Malik Neighbors, and why is his absence or limited availability creating such massive problems for this team? Because here's the thing that the ESPN crew kept emphasizing. When Neighbors got hurt earlier in the season with that ACL injury, it completely devastated the Giants' offensive identity. Neighbors was supposed to be the guy for this offense, the #1 receiving threat that quarterback Jackson Dart could rely on to make plays downfield. When he went down, suddenly you're looking at a receiving core that consists of Wan'Dale Robinson, who's a really good slot receiver, but isn't built to be your primary deep threat. Some role players who are fine as complementary pieces, but can't carry the load, and a whole bunch of question marks. The Giants have been trying to piece together an offensive attack with limited weapons, and it's been brutal to watch. Dart has shown flashes of being a really talented young quarterback, but he needs help. He needs weapons he can trust to win one-on-one matchups and stretch the field. And this is exactly where Shaheed enters the conversation, because according to the reporting that came out on SportsCenter today, the Giants were seriously exploring acquiring Shaheed from the New Orleans Saints earlier this season, right after Neighbors got hurt. Now, that trade didn't end up happening for various reasons that we'll get into, but the ESPN panel today was breaking down why Shaheed would have been an absolutely perfect fit for what the Giants needed and why they might still pursue him this offseason if he becomes available. Let me tell you about Shaheed for those who might not be super familiar with him, because the SportsCenter crew did a whole segment on his skill set and why he's such an intriguing player. Shaheed is a burner, like legitimate track speed that shows up on tape. This guy can take the top off of defenses, can run by cornerbacks, can turn short passes into massive gains because of his acceleration and top-end speed. He's been productive with the Saints despite playing in an offense that's been inconsistent and chaotic this season, and he's on the last year of his contract, which makes him an affordable acquisition target. What the ESPN analysts were really emphasizing about Shaheed is that he represents exactly the kind of deep threat that the Giants are desperately missing without Neighbors. When you have a rookie quarterback like Jackson Dart, who's still developing, one of the most important things you can do is give him easy completions that turn into big plays. Having a receiver who can separate deep and create explosive plays takes so much pressure off your quarterback, because suddenly, defenses can't just sit on short and intermediate routes. They have to respect the deep ball, which opens up everything else underneath. The SportsCenter discussion today also dove deep into the scheme fit. And this is where it gets really interesting. Shaheed was coached by Clint Kubiak in New Orleans before Kubiak went to Seattle, and the offensive concepts he learned in that system are very similar to what Mike Kafka is running with the Giants. That means Shaheed wouldn't need months to learn a completely new playbook. He could come in and immediately contribute, because the root concepts, the terminology, the overall philosophy would be familiar to him. When you're making a mid-season trade or even an off-season acquisition, that kind of plug-and-play capability is invaluable. What really got the panel excited was when they started talking about how Shaheed would fit alongside the current Giants receiver. You'd have Wan'Dale Robinson working the slot, making plays underneath, and after the catch, you'd have Shaheed stretching the field vertically and forcing safeties to stay deep. And then you'd have your other complementary receivers working the middle of the field. That creates a balanced attack, where defenses can't just focus on stopping one thing. They have to respect all levels of the field. For a young quarterback like Dart, having that kind of variety and those kinds of weapons makes the game so much easier. The show also spent significant time discussing why the Saints would even consider trading Shaheed. And this is crucial context for understanding why this move made sense from both sides. New Orleans is basically in full rebuild mode right now. They're way under 500. They're not competing for anything meaningful this season, and they need to start thinking about accumulating assets for the future. Shaheed being in the last year of his contract means he could walk in free agency, and the Saints would get nothing in return. By trading him to a team like the Giants, they could at least get a draft pick or a young player that fits their rebuilding timeline. From the Giants' perspective, the ESPN analysts were breaking down why acquiring Shaheed would have been a relatively low-risk, high-reward move. You're not giving up a king's ransom in draft capital for a guy on an expiring contract. You're probably talking about a mid-round pick, or maybe a package of late-round picks. That's totally affordable for a team that's trying to support their rookie quarterback and salvage something from this season. Even if Shaheed only helped you win one or two more games, that's valuable for Dart's development and for establishing a culture of competitiveness rather than just accepting losing. What I found particularly fascinating during today's SportsCenter discussion was when they brought up Shaheed's abilities as a return specialist. This guy can house kicks, like he's a legitimate threat to take it to the end zone every time he touches the ball on special teams. The Giants have been mediocre at best in the return game this year, and adding a dynamic returner who can flip field position or even score touchdowns would be a massive upgrade. Special teams' impact is often overlooked when evaluating trades, but the reality is that good return men can be worth multiple wins over the course of a season just by creating short fields and scoring opportunities. The panel also explored what happened with the trade discussions and why the deal ultimately didn't get done. According to the reporting, the Giants were interested, but the Saints' asking price was higher than what New York wanted to pay, or the timing didn't work out with other moves that were being considered, or there were just logistical issues that couldn't be resolved before the trade deadline passed. But here's what the ESPN crew kept emphasizing. Just because the trade didn't happen in season doesn't mean it can't happen this offseason. If Shaheed hits free agency, or if the Saints decide to use the franchise tag and trade him, the Giants could absolutely be right back in the mix trying to acquire him. One thing that came up repeatedly in the discussion was the question of whether acquiring one receiver like Shaheed would actually solve the Giants' problems, or if their issues are more systemic and deep-rooted. And honestly, the analysts were split on this. Some argued that yes, adding a legitimate deep threat would transform the offense and unlock Jackson Dart's potential. Others countered that the Giants have problems everywhere, from offensive line issues to defensive breakdowns to questionable coaching decisions. And one receiver isn't going to fix all of that. Both perspectives have merit, but I think most people watching would agree that at minimum, Shaheed would make the offense better, even if he doesn't single-handedly save the season. SportsCenter also spent time analyzing Shaheed's production with the Saints this year, and the numbers are actually pretty impressive considering the dysfunction around him. He's averaged a healthy number of yards per reception, he's scored multiple touchdowns, he's been targeted consistently, which shows the Saints trust him. For a player who was undrafted and had to work his way onto an NFL roster, Shaheed has proven he belongs and that he can be a productive NFL receiver. That's exactly the kind of story and work ethic you want to bring into a struggling locker room like the Giants have right now. What really struck me during today's broadcast was the connection back to the Malik Neighbors situation and how it all ties together. The Giants invested a high draft pick in Neighbors because they believed he could be a franchise-changing receiver, and by all accounts, before he got hurt, he was living up to that billing. But his injury exposed just how thin the Giants are at the position, how little depth they have, how dependent they were on one player to carry the entire passing attack. Adding Shaheed wouldn't replace Neighbors, obviously, but it would give the Giants the kind of depth and versatility they need, so that one injury doesn't completely derail everything. The ESPN panel also discussed the broader roster construction issues that the Giants are facing and how general manager Joe Schoen has failed to adequately address receiving depth over multiple offseasons. They've invested resources in other positions, they've made moves to shore up the defense and offensive line, but the receiving core has been neglected relative to its importance in a modern NFL offense. That's a huge indictment of the front office, and it's part of why fans are so frustrated with the current state of the franchise. One analyst made a really interesting point about how the Giants need to be thinking about 2025 and beyond, not just salvaging what's left of this season. If they can acquire Shaheed this offseason, they'd be setting themselves up with a really interesting young receiver room. Neighbors coming back from injury as your number one, Robinson in the slot as a reliable chain mover, Shaheed as your deep threat, and potentially another rookie or two from the draft to add depth. That's a group that could actually support Dart's development and give the offense a chance to be competitive in the tough NFC East division. The show also touched on the coaching implications of all this, particularly the controversy around offensive coordinator Mike Kafka's decisions in yesterday's game. The fourth down call, the play sequencing, the overall game management have all been questioned, and multiple ESPN analysts suggested that Kafka might be feeling the heat if the Giants don't show significant improvement. Having better weapons like Shaheed would make Kafka's job easier, but at some point, you also have to trust your coordinator to make smart decisions regardless of personnel limitation. What I loved about today's SportsCenter coverage was that they didn't just focus on one angle, they explored everything about this situation. They talked about Neighbors' mental state and whether his frustration is justified. They talked about the coaching decisions and whether going for it on 4th down was the right call. They talked about the defensive breakdowns that have plagued this team all season, and they connected it all to the bigger picture of what the Giants need to do to turn this franchise around. It was comprehensive, it was fair, it was exactly the kind of analysis you want from a premier sports broadcast. Listen, after watching the entire SportsCenter segment today, and hearing all the different perspectives on the Giants' situation and the potential Rashid Shaheed acquisition, I'm convinced this is a move the Giants absolutely need to pursue aggressively this offseason. They can't go into 2025 with the same thin receiving corps they had this year. They can't put Jackson Dart in a position where he's throwing to practice squad players and hoping for the best. Shaheed represents an affordable, scheme-fit, productive option who could immediately upgrade the offense and give the Giants a legitimate three-headed receiving monster with Neighbors, Robinson, and himself. Whether they can actually pull off the trade or sign him in free agency remains to be seen. But if Joe Schoen and this front office are serious about supporting their young quarterback and building a competitive team, pursuing Shaheed needs to be at the top of their priority list. This Giants situation is a mess right now, but moves like this could be the beginning of turning it around.